Hey guys, it's me, and today we're going to be doing something that I actually have never done before. I've been doing like beauty makeup content for such a long time, but I have never done a palette bingo before. So for those of you who don't know what palette bingo is, this is a thing that has been happening in the beauty space for a very long time. Essentially what it is that you do, you get a selection of palettes to choose from, put in like number each palette, and then put it through a number generator, and then you select a palette that way. And then you put the amount of pans that are in said palette and put that into a number generator as well, and then you can take about 4, 5, maybe at most 6 shadows from that palette and create a random look using it. I thought that this would be a fun thing to do, especially considering that there are quite a few palettes in my collection that I have only ever used but once. So we're going to actually go through and select palettes that I haven't really used, and that I've only have used, but like I said, but once, and it's been a very long time since I've used. Before we get on into doing this fun little, I guess you could say, challenge, if you guys are new here to my channel, don't forget to hit subscribe, and also while you're down there, definitely give this video a thumbs up because it'll help me out a lot. All my links are down in the description box below, which are the links to my Twitter, Instagram, and my music channel. For some reason I was wanting to say there's a link to my Facebook down there. Please don't add me on Facebook. But yeah, definitely follow me across those different places. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna go ahead and select some palettes that we can work with today. So the palettes that I have chosen that we could potentially work with today are gonna be the Club Nebula palette in collaboration with Angelica Nyqvist and Kaleidos. This is the inside of the palette. It's a really beautiful palette. It's got some really nice jewel tones in it. I've only ever used this palette once, and that was in, I think, the early part of 2021. Then we have the Pure X Robert E. Christie double-sided palette. So I have used this palette a few times, but I just rarely ever dip into it, and I want to show this palette some more love. And speaking of Robert E. Christie, we also have the At Forest Sight palette, which was done in collaboration with her and ColourPop, which I only used this palette once. So again, want to show that palette some more love. This is actually a palette I've gotten a fair amount of use out of, but I haven't used it in a while, and that is the NikkieTutorials X Beauty Bay palette. I really do enjoy this palette. I've used it quite a few times, like I mentioned, but I haven't dipped into it in a while. I do not like the bifold on it whatsoever. I just find it to be a bit annoying to work with. The final palette that I picked out is a palette that I've used a couple of times, but I've never really used it, if that makes sense. Lunar Beauty, and it is the Life's a Drag facelift. And I've had this guy for a while as well. I want to say I got it towards the end of 2021, early part of 2022, I think. But this is it right here. Got some neutrals on this side, some brights here, and then you got your metallics down the center. And so we're gonna number these palettes in order of which I show them off to you guys, just using a number generator through Google, nothing fancy. I'm gonna do 3 rounds, and then whatever lands on the third one is the palette that we wind up using. So it says number 2, so we're gonna be using the Pure X Robert E. Christie palette, and now we are going to be selecting shades. So how I'm gonna do this is that it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on. Now with this round, whatever numbers come up, that is what we are gonna work with. So we're gonna do 5 shades. So I'm gonna write down each number that it generates. I'm gonna like go through a few times just to like clear it out. So yeah. Alright, so first one that we have is 13. Next one is 2. We have 1, 5, and 9. Now this is going to be interesting because this palette only has but 2 shimmers in it, and those are the center shades on each side. So let's see, so the shades that we have here are going to be 1, 2, 5, and 9. So there's going to be one pop of color, because how I'm wanting to do this is to do the neutral sides using 1 through 9, and then the colorful side doing 10 through 18. We have 1, 2, 5, so we do get a shimmer, and then 9, and then 13 is going to be 10, 11, 12. That's so simple though. You know what? We're going to flip it around. This is going to be 1 through 9, and this is going to be 10 through 18, because like that is so simple of a look and everything. Like all 5 of those colors go together and everything. Like I want this to be chaotic and weird, okay? I want there to be a chance for things to get strange. And you see already, like flipping it onto this side, it's making it weird and strange, because this is going to be 1, 2, 5, 9, and then 13, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that makes it way more interesting and whatnot. So we're going to do it that way, because for one, like I said, it's going to make the look more interesting, and 2, it's also going to make things a little bit more challenging, because now I have to find a way to pair red and green together. I have an idea, because we do have this shade here, and I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm thinking about doing like a halo eye, and then do something along those lines. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of my makeup out. In the future, I might do a rendition where I do like entirely randomly generated face and everything, and just do a randomly generated face and everything. So like number of foundations I'm working with, blushes, bronzers, highlighters, shadows, things like that. I might do that sometime in the future, but I figured that this first go around, let's just focus on palettes, because that's what I mostly have in my collection. Now, I do know that this palette is no longer available, so if you're one of the types of people who gets annoyed when influencers use products that you can't get a hold of, then, well, I am sorry. This is not the channel for you. I am all about using what all it is that you have, and not really going out and buying every single new thing that's on the market. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, just that much, just so that way we can focus on my face. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and go in with primer. I'm gonna be using Urban Decay Primer Potion today, as always, because this is my tried and true primer. Let me get the mirror up and ready to go. I might have to get, yeah, let me clip my hair in just a moment. I can't see what it is that I'm doing. I don't want to jab myself in the eye. We're gonna be janky. And look in the viewfinder for this part here. Well, actually, then just gonna blend it out using this Real Techniques Deluxe Crease Brush. This is my favorite brush to blend out primer with and concealer with, which it is sadly no longer available. I don't want to be like basic and doing like green up top and red on the bottom. Like, no, I want the colors to be present with one another. This is going to turn very Christmassy. I'm going to do something a bit strange, but hear me out. So we're going to go in with Lumos here, which is a matte white. I'm going to take it on this BH Cosmetics fluffy blending brush. This was from the Zodiac Crystal collection, I think, something like that, and that is the number 7 brush from that set. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to tap off some excess, and I'm just going to rock this throughout the crease. And I'm gonna build it up just slightly. I don't want to build up too much because I don't want it to look super white in the crease and whatnot. Because this is a fairly pigmented white. So I'd say nothing more intense than like this. I know in the viewfinder right now it's looking a lot more intense than what it's looking in person. And we're using this as a transition shade. So now we're gonna go into Garden State, and we're just gonna focus Garden State on the outer corners. I'm gonna focus this on the outer corners. And then we're gonna bring it up slightly towards the crease. But we're not gonna bring it all the way into the center though. We're just gonna take it into about maybe not 2/3, about 1/3 of the way into the crease. We're gonna do this on both sides. Now, before we start blending, we're gonna lay down the red, which is Flavor Town. And I'm just gonna take it on this brush here. This is from ColourPop. It's a E18. And we're gonna take this in the inner portion. If it gets a little bit into the crease, it's no big deal. And similarly to this side, we're gonna take it in just right before we get to the crease. Well, I say the crease, to the top. And if we get some on the lid, that's perfectly fine. Just gonna bring a little bit more of Garden State onto the lids, just a little bit more, not a whole lot more, just like that much, like just to fill in that V shape a little bit. And we're just gonna focus on the edges, and we're going to just feather things along. Try to blend things out and upwards into the crease a bit, just to soften things up a bit. I know this is like a little bit low for what I typically do. Don't worry, we're gonna blow this out eventually. I'm just trying to get how I want things to look closer to the lid first. And then we're gonna start blowing out the outer portion, because the inner portion is pretty much already done. I'm just going in like small circular motions, because we don't want to blow out like this inner portion too much, but we still want to soften up that edge. And we don't necessarily want the two colors to meet, because if they do meet, they will neutralize, which will then make things get really muddy and weird. All right, so now I'm just gonna take this little blending brush here from Do Color, and I'm gonna pick up Garden State with it, and we're just gonna start blowing out this outer portion here. And we're gonna go in circular motions with this. Just to build it up. Now, again, not going to take it up too high. And then I'm going to take that brush from earlier. And we're just going to start feathering this upwards in those circular motions. Like so, just so I can blow and blend out a little bit more. Now we're gonna flip over to this side here, and I'm gonna take this brush here from ColourPop. This is a E21 brush. It's kind of like a similar shape to that Do Color one that I was just using. And we're gonna take copper boxes here. And we're just gonna focus this shade in the inner and outer portions. Well, the inner and outer corners, I should say. So we're going to use this to be a deepener shade. You could also use a shading brush for this, but I want to use something with this kind of shape just so that way it can like not deposit a whole lot of product down at once. I do think what I'll do is I'll probably take this same shade and like smoke it out on the bottom lash line, but we'll see about that in a bit. I'm just gonna take it outer portion, I can't speak. You can really see the yellow in this shade once we start mixing it in with this green. So now that the color is roughly laid down in those inner and outer corners, I'm going to start out by taking the brush that I used earlier to apply Garden State, not bringing any extra product on, and I'm just going to start blending. And as you can see, it just created some extra depth without it being a little too overkill. And now I'm gonna take a flat shader brush. I'm gonna take this one from Shani. It's just I think an E11. I've had this brush for years. And we're gonna pick up the shade Cafe Disco, which is this shimmer shade in here. And we're just gonna pop this all over the center of the lid. And bring it up as well to the crease. I'm gonna feather out the edges a bit. And have a little moment like this. This look is very Christmassy, but trust me, it's probably gonna stay looking Christmassy even after I grunge out that bottom lid with just putting cover boxes down. Because I think what I'm gonna do is that I'm just gonna take cover boxes onto the bottom lid just so that way you can actually see that that shadow got used. This is actually a really fun look. If I was ballsy and good enough with eyeshadows and whatnot, like I used to be, I would so try to recreate this on the bottom lid. But I'm not as good with eyeshadow as I used to be, so I don't trust myself to do a good job with it. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and do my face. My skin is actually still doing pretty good after moisturizing earlier, so I'm not gonna actually put a moisturizer down and everything before putting my foundation on. Do my handy dandy combination of the LYS Triple Fix Serum Foundation, mixing shades. Oh my god, this cap does not want to stay on. Oh my god, is it broken? It does not want to stay on here. And then I'm gonna do a pump of each shade. It just seems a little neutral than what I typically go for. From Urban Decay, this is the Stay Naked Quickie Concealer. I use the shade CP20. And we're gonna do blop here, blop here. Oh, that's a big blop. And then just gonna take that and that. When it comes to using concealer to like cover up shadow and whatnot, do not swipe it when you're applying it, but dab like I'm doing here. So if you swipe it, it's going to cause the concealer to mix with your shadow, which will then just smear the shadow all over your face. I'm gonna go ahead and do the first layer of setting spray real quick. I'm actually going to go ahead and do my lips now. I'm just going to do a lip oil today. This is the Danjarin lip oil from ColourPop that they did in collaboration with The Mandalorian a while back. I think this was a collab that they did in, when was it, 2021? Teensy, so you can see it's better color on the lips, but still have something going on with them. Finish up the eyes, and then we'll move on into the rest of the face. So I'm gonna take that copper box. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the brush like this and tap it on at an angle, tap off the excess, and then the side where you have the shadow on that angle, tilt that side upwards and apply it that way. And I think I tapped off too much product there. So I'm just gonna build that up again. Alright, so that's what we got going on there. And I'm gonna go in with Cafe Disco. Yeah, Cafe Disco again. On a little pencil brush here. This one is from Shani Cosmetics. It is the F16. And I'm just gonna pop this on the inner corners. And try not to hide myself from you guys. When it comes to me into my inner corner highlights, I like to bring them into the tear duct a bit. Just because I find that it flatters my eye shape a little bit more. And then I'm just going to take a small amount of Cafe Disco and just pop this on the brow bones here. Just speaking of which, I'm going to need to get my brows done probably in about a week or two. Now I'm going to pop on a coat of mascara, Marc Jacobs Velvet Noir Major Volume Mascara. And now it's time to do the cheeks, because pretty much the palette bingo part of this is done. So now I'm just gonna run through the rest of the makeup. So I'm gonna pop on some blush. I thought about putting on bronzer, but I don't know. I think bronzer might be just a little bit too much for this look. So we're just gonna put on some blush. This is the ColourPop Super Shock in Between the Sheets. And for highlight, we're going to use Fenty Diamond Bomb in How Many Carats. Now I'm just going to quickly fill in my brows using Anastasia Brow Wiz Taupe. Last layer setting spray. This is the look that we did today. This is probably one of the best halo eyes I've ever done, honestly. Really happy with this. Alright, so now you guys can see it a little bit more zoomed out. How are we feeling? I really like this. It's definitely different for me and everything. This was definitely a fun little challenge for me. It wasn't too difficult though, because like I said, like if I would have done like using this as 1 through 9 and this is 10 through 18, it would have been such a basic little look and everything. It would have worked just way too perfectly. A little bit out of season because it definitely does read Christmas, but hey, if you guys need inspiration for a Christmas look, reference this later on this year. That is it for my first ever palette bingo. How do you guys think I did? And should I do this again? I might make this like a monthly thing. Like I'll do like a palette bingo once a month. Like I mentioned earlier, should I do one where I randomize my entire face at some point? Now, granted, I don't have a lot of multiples of certain categories. Like I only have 1 concealer. I only have one foundation. Technically it's 2 because I mixed 2 shades together, but still technically I only have 1 foundation. But when it comes to cheek products, I'm about to have a second bronzer. I ordered a bronzer from Makeup Geek about a month ago, and it just shipped out yesterday along with a few other goodies from them, which is also going to give me an extra highlighter. And then I have like other blushes and whatnot, and I do want to get some more bronzers as well, just so I can have like options and everything, because don't get me wrong, I love you, my Omega bronzer and Tantastic from Marc Jacobs, but I want some more options, because this is a lovely bronzer. I do really enjoy it, but I want more options. And also I think that it would be fun to eventually do one of these using single shadows as well, because I do have a couple of singles in my collection. I have a few that are coming in with that Makeup Geek order, and then I just already have quite a few in my collection as well in general, because I think I have 7 from Sugarpill and I have 4 from Makeup Geek that I already had, and I have 5 singles from Makeup Geek coming in, and I also have a loose pigment from Makeup Geek too, so I can use that in the little singles video too. So if you want me to do one on my singles, let me know and I'll be sure to do one on those at some point. But that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed this look. It's a very chill little video that we have here going today. But until I see you guys in my next video, whenever that may be, goodbye.